Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rollout Show. I don't remember what episode we're on.
We're on 37.
Thank you, host.
Yeah, no problem.
It's been a minute since we've done a show. I apologize. You know, the holiday season, all the hubbub.
Bradley's fault.
We didn't get a show out last week. We did a show the week before, though, right? So we only missed a week. We missed Christmas.
We missed Christmas week.
Sorry about that. I hope our social media director took the time to send a tweet out.
I didn't send a tweet out saying we missed the show, but I did retweet and tweet an awful lot of other stuff about the sports topics of the day, so I'm glad you all appreciated that.
And again, follow us on Twitter at The Rollout Show. We like interacting with all of you. We're trying to continue to be active on those platforms, so, hit us up at The Rollout Show. What are we going to be talking about today, Weston?
Well, tomorrow happens to be quite a big day. It's the first day of 2018.
The first day of 2018, not the second.
The first. And you know what also is on the first day of 2018, Bradley?
College football playoff!
What? So that's what we're talking about a lot today. We're going to preview those matchups. We're also going to talk a little LeVar Ball and his new business endeavors that hopefully somebody else runs for him. We're going to talk a little baseball, some different topics, some free agent signings or lack thereof, and maybe a little bit about the commissioner. And then we're also going to talk about the coaching carousel in the NFL, otherwise known as Black Monday.
Dun dun dun!
See who is on the unemployment line starting tomorrow.
I doubt they'll be at the unemployment line. Let's be honest.
It's
I think they're doing okay.
It's at the NFL headquarters. They're just like passing out resumes. Just like, look, I mean, I don't like Indianapolis,
but I could be your quarterback's coach.
But I could be your quarterback's coach. I mean, Andrew Luck is a talent. Let me tell you. As long as we get that shoulder.
I feel like anyone who was a former head coach in the NFL can get an assistant job. I don't think they're hurting. In all seriousness, when's the last time a head coach lost his job but still wanted to coach and wasn't able to get a new job?
Ben McAdoo.
That might be the first. You've done it. You have cracked the code.
Shout out to you, Ben McAdoo.
Excellent job. I think you really did just figure it out because I wouldn't hire that guy.
I wouldn't hire him. I wouldn't have him anywhere near my organization.
Wow. You've really done it.
I'm really proud of myself.
I'm stunned. I don't even know what to do anymore.
I think we should just end the show. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. Episode 37. It's a quick one, about 3 minutes long, and we hope you have a great week.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
No, but seriously, if you've listened to this show at all over the last few months, you know that I am a huge Georgia Bulldogs fan, and Weston is a Bama fan. And we have been touting these two teams all season, talking about the hypothetical, what if they saw each other in the SEC championship game? And unfortunately, if you're a college football fan, you know that didn't happen. Alabama lost the Iron Bowl to Auburn and got kicked out of the SEC championship.
Dang it, Auburn.
When Georgia then redeemed them and took out Auburn, leading to Alabama getting the last college football playoff spot. But something miraculous has happened since then. There's a chance for Georgia and Alabama to play not for the SEC championship. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
The
Bigger
national championship.
Big things happening.
The winner of the whole thing. And it all comes down to Monday.
Monday.
Black Monday.
Black Monday.
But that's not why it's called Black Monday. That's a different thing.
That's right.
So, game one. Georgia. Oklahoma. Defense versus offense. Red versus red. East Coast
versus Tornado Alley. Down on the plain.
All defense versus no defense.
Power running game versus they have a really good quarterback.
Jake Fromm versus Baker Mayfield.
I don't know. I think that's pretty much a toss-up on talent level on that one.
If only Eason were still in. I'm still on that bandwagon.
You're still on that you're riding that bandwagon
if
hard.
I could take a minute,
just go for it.
I would say Jake Fromm, when he has time and isn't pressured, does throw some of the most accurate passes I've ever seen from a freshman quarterback. I will say that when he has time. And if you saw Eason ever try to scramble with the ball, he looked kind of like Tom Brady does, where he looks like a gazelle with two legs. Fromm's pretty quick, so it's nice having more of a running threat out of the quarterback. We haven't really had that since Matthew Stafford, because despite what you would assume, Matthew Stafford is pretty fast. At least he was before he got to the NFL, and his knees kept getting hit over and over and over.
Yeah, at least his knees held up.
So, Monday. ESPN FPI has Georgia favored 53.2 to 46.8. Las Vegas has Georgia as a 2.5-point favorite. I ask you, who wins this game?
I think I might go out on a limb here and shock a lot of people. I'm going to pick the favorite, the Georgia Bulldogs. Yeah! But in all seriousness, though, I found a stat from 538.com. And
if you don't know 538, it's all about analytics and stats. It's basically ESPN's child site that just only focuses on analytics. None of the traditional expert stuff. It's just Nate Silverman. That's his name, right? The runner of 538. He's just a nerd, and he just runs numbers.
And it's awesome.
And yeah, go ahead.
So the 2017 Oklahoma Sooners are the most imbalanced playoff team ever. So
although this is only the fourth playoff.
It's the fourth. To be fair, it's the fourth playoff, but it is a pretty telling stat because most of the teams who have won. So 2015 Alabama, 2016 Clemson, and 2014 Ohio State. Only 2014 Ohio State had a better offensive efficiency than they had a defensive efficiency. So that's not necessarily a huge telling stat, but for Oklahoma, it's by far and away the most lopsided ever. They have a close to 100% efficiency rating on the offensive side of the ball, and their defensive efficiency is about a 52. To put that in perspective, the lowest ever for the college football playoff was 2014 Ohio State, and they were at a 70 defensive efficiency. So just showing you that Oklahoma really has no defense whatsoever. And that's why I think Georgia's in really good hands here, because you're talking about Fromm and his accurate passes. If he's not pressured, I really don't think they're going to get much of any kind of pressure on Jake Fromm, so he's just going to be comfortable in the pocket all day long.
So I would say Georgia offensively, I'm not worried at all. Georgia has one of the nation's best run games. They have 3 really good running backs. They have 5 capable running backs. They just have a stable, unlike really anyone else in college football this season.
Great depth.
Right. That's what I mean. Like they have legitimately 5 guys that could start on other teams.
And
between Chubb, Michelle, Swift, Holyfield, and Harrion. So that's good. I mean, it's certainly not bad. And then you have capable receivers, not great receivers, but good enough to get open, and Fromm's a really accurate passer when he's protected. And the O-line's been playing out of their mind this season. The one area of concern I absolutely have is Georgia's defense versus Baker Mayfield. So yes, the Big 12 doesn't play defense. And if you have anyone trying to tell you that, yes, they do, TCU has like the number 3 defense in the country, they're wrong. Watch Big 12 games. Even TCU's games. The stats are misleading.
They're very misleading.
The Big 12 does not play defense at all if you watch football. And this is a case where, the numbers don't always match the story. Numbers sometimes do lie. But the one thing that Georgia really struggles with defensively is the pass rush. They're great at stopping the run. Their secondary is really good in coverage. They get no pass rush. And if Baker Mayfield is given a significant amount of time to do his thing, he'll probably shred us because he's a very good college quarterback. He's not amazing, but he's very good.
And he's really good when he has time and on broken plays, and he can scramble around.
And you've got to keep him in the pocket. It's the Russell Wilson scenario. Just don't let him get out of the pocket, and he can't hurt you as bad. I'm incredibly worried. There's no way I would ever put money on this game. If I did, I would probably bet Georgia. It's a heart pick. I'm not going to be rooting for Georgia with all my heart, but have my money on Oklahoma. That's just how you get heartbroken. Instead of having a win, you lose. It's a lose-lose, not really a win-win. I'm very concerned about Oklahoma's offense, but I'm also a very pessimistic fan. I always have been.
You definitely have.
Georgia, throughout me watching them, which has primarily been the Mark Richt era, Georgia usually lets you down, 2007, they go 10-2, should have been in the championship game, didn't get there. I still think they should have and would have won that game, but you know what happens. 2012 or 2011, don't remember which, one of the two, go to the SEC championship game, get so close against Alabama.
Chris Conley.
And you lose. But this year, Georgia actually won the big game. They won the SEC championship game quite handedly. And it was very telling, and I'm extremely hopeful. I'll just leave it at that. It should be a great game of strength on strength, which is what you like to see in college football. I'm excited. I'm very nervous, but very excited.
This is just a telling thing about Bradley. You're always nervous when it comes to Georgia, no matter what. It's like, well, it's a rivalry game against Georgia Tech. I know they're like 2-7, but
we talked about the Georgia-Florida game.
Oh yeah,
Florida's horrible this year. They didn't make a bowl game.
Nope.
And I was so nervous for that game because that game is one that I'm used to seeing Georgia fall off for. They just don't show up. And it sort of happened with the Auburn game. Auburn's actually a really good team. I'll say it. They're probably one of the best 4 teams in the country.
Probably.
It's a shame that they lost so many games early because if they'd been undefeated in that playoff game, I bet they get in over Alabama.
Oh, they probably would. I'll admit that. It's basically Gus Malzahn. If he should have made the changes sooner. But they're still rolling out Sean White and everything. Got a couple of losses early. Played some tough teams. But yeah, if they had a better resume, if they were one loss, if they basically had equal resumes, but Auburn lost the conference championship game and then Alabama wasn't even in it, they'd probably put in Auburn.
Well, and Auburn would have had the head-to-head against Alabama. So I'm excited, nervous. How you feeling about this game? You excited for me? This is the closest Georgia's ever been.
I'm pretty excited for you. I mean, you almost won the de facto 2012 national championship game because let's be honest, that Alabama-Notre Dame game, I mean, you basically didn't even need to play that thing.
That's one of the most emotional sports experiences I've ever had. If you don't know what we're talking about, maybe I should explain it because we're just talking about this game like everyone knows.
I mean, they should know. It's like the greatest SEC title game of all time.
So, Bama was up by like 4 points with like 30 seconds to go, and Aaron Murray leading the way.
The greatest Georgia quarterback of all time.
He has the best numbers of any SEC quarterback in history. It's extremely misleading because there aren't that many 4-year quarterback starters in the SEC historically. But anyway, he drove them all the way down the field, clocked the ball on like the 7-yard line with like 4 seconds to go. You get 1 shot at a play, maybe 2. Actually, no, because there were time for 2 plays. It was probably like 8 seconds.
Time for 2 plays.
It was probably like 8 seconds. And they try to hit, I think it was Malcolm Mitchell, on a fade route in the right corner of the end zone.
Yep.
And Aaron Murray gets pressured and underthrows the ball. And Chris Conley, who's running the underneath out route, he's on like the 5. And if he just bats that ball to the ground, the clock is killed. You get 1 more shot at it, but he catches it. And then he gets tackled. and then the game's over. 3 yards away from glory.
Hey, don't hate on the freshman Chris Conley. Man thought like, wow, Aaron Murray's throwing the ball my way. This is weird, but I better catch it.
Well, absolutely. You don't intentionally drop it because you can't see behind you. Like, when he gets that ball thrown his way, his assumption has to be, I must have an open lane to the end zone. Because the guy that tackles him isn't his guy. It's the guy that was covering the fade route in the end zone, who came off of Malcolm Mitchell to then make the tackle.
Right.
Like, he can't, I jokingly blame Chris Conley. It's not his fault at all.
I think it was actually D. Milner who was technically covering Malcolm Mitchell at that time.
It probably was. It was all because of the pressure that caused Aaron Murray to underthrow the ball. Like, it was nobody's fault. It was a great Alabama play. I almost just said Auburn play.
Don't do that. Great play call by Kirby Smart over there.
If only we were recording me back then, you would have seen me rolling on the ground hysterically.
Oh, you literally were. We watched this game together. He was rolling on the floor, and I was just celebrating, jumping around.
I was so mad.
Just in the floor of my house. Man. And then I point at the Alabama football that, as a superstition, I moved to a different spot in the house. And Alabama started winning.
It's still there.
Still there to this day.
How many championships have been won since then, Weston? 4?
Yeah, about 4. Man. Only 4. It's okay.
We have to have a Georgia-Alabama national championship.
We need this. We need the rematch.
Incredible.
Only for the Rollout show and our friendship, it probably means more than to anyone else. But we need this.
Absolutely.
We need this.
This show needs this. We will live stream it. I don't know what we have to do. We'll do something. It'll be great.
We'll have Periscope going, just everything, seeing the live reactions.
That's probably not legal.
Oh, well, we won't have to show the game.
Okay.
We'll show our reactions.
Good call.
Yeah, I got you.
All right, so that's game 1. We both picked Georgia. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think Georgia gets up by a score in the fourth quarter and is just able to run the ball and burn clock. I don't think they win by more than 1 score, honestly.
See, I actually disagree with you. I
think
really
it's going to be a blowout?
I'm not going to go blowout, but I think it's going to be a much easier road than you think it is. I think Georgia's going to win by at least 2 scores.
Do you think it's going to be more like the Georgia-Auburn SEC championship game where it's close to the first half, but the second half, the running game just wears them down, and at the end of the game, the score's a lot bigger than the game actually was?
Yes, that's what I think it's going to be.
I'd be thrilled.
Oh, I know you'd be super happy about it. It's the fact that it's the toughest defense Baker Mayfield's going to have seen all year. And it's also, I mean, it's the 5 running back thing. I mean, you just constantly have fresh legs against you.
And Nick Chubb, while he's not as fast as he once was, is still really strong.
Oh, yeah.
He will still run you over. He won't get away from you anymore, which is really unfortunate. I hope someone still drafts him in like the 3rd round and gives him some cash, but he isn't even close to as fast as he was his freshman year.
Right.
That boy's still strong. And he will run you over and fall forward.
His vision is impeccable.
He has great vision. He reminds me a lot of Frank Gore, just a little slower, which means I'm worried about him at the next level, especially after watching Saquon Barkley in his bowl game, where he's running away from corners like they're standing still.
Oh my God.
That dude is incredible.
No, Saquon Barkley is legit.
He is so good. He's so fast. It's great.
Fast and strong. That's what you want.
If he's not a top 10 pick, I don't know what these guys are looking at. He's better than any of the first-round running backs from last year. Let me think about that statement.
I was about to say.
I've already said it. Fournette. All right, Fournette, probably a toss-up. Fournette's amazing.
Fournette is amazing.
When he's got health problems.
Christian McCaffrey.
Better than McCaffrey.
I think so, too.
Dalvin Cook was a second-round pick. No, it's just those 2, wasn't it? In the first round, Joe Mixon was a second-round pick.
Joe Mixon was a second-rounder, yeah. Because Dalvin Cook, you would have said...
He fell because he had a bad combine.
Yeah, he fell because of bad combine and then off-the-field concerns.
Yeah, so it was just those 2. Fournette is amazing, but he has health problems. Saquon Barkley hasn't really had health problems yet, and he should have won the Heisman this year. So, you know what? I'll say it.
Yeah, James Franklin let him down. Let that be known.
Saquon Barkley is the best running back coming out of college since Todd Gurley. I've said it.
Over Zeke? You're going over Zeke?
Todd Gurley's better than Zeke.
You think so?
Yes. Oh, I know so. I watched Todd Gurley play for 3 years. Todd Gurley, in all seriousness now.
Okay.
Because it's a little hyperbolic. But know I've always thought Zeke was overrated.
Yes, I do.
For this year, I kind of think he redeemed himself by missing games because that offense looked so horrible without him.
Yeah, because that offense looked lost without him.
And that O-line looked bad without him. It was weird.
That was very
strange.
It's like everybody went to crap once he got suspended.
And maybe it was psychological. I don't know. But Todd Gurley is the only running back I've ever watched in college where every game I knew he was going to break at least one. Since then, I've never experienced that, but literally every game you watched Todd Gurley, you knew he was going to have a 60-yard run. He just was. And he's brought that into the NFL. Last year, not so much, but this year and his rookie year, he's shown that.
Right.
Todd Gurley, a lot of people would argue Todd Gurley's the best running back in football right now. I would probably say he's top 5. He might be 3rd. I think I'd still give the nod to Le'Veon Bell. But Todd Gurley's a
think
beast. He could win MVP this year.
He could, and I will give him credit. I mean, I'm a Todd Gurley fan. I have been ever since the Rams drafted him, even in college. He's amazing. He's a great player, but I do think we're all might need to slow it down a little bit because it's like his past 2 weeks were just so phenomenal. His past 2 games that it's like
all
really
season,
fresh.
Though.
He has been great all season. It's just like his past 2 games were like otherworldly.
And let me just speak from a fantasy perspective for a second. I had an opportunity to get Todd Gurley in a league, and I didn't. This was at the very beginning of the year, and I didn't because Todd Gurley, the second half of the season, they went up against some tough defenses. You know what he did? He scored on all of them. He didn't care. He just kept running. He's so good. And he's got hands now. It's incredible.
It's a wonder, an offensive coaching scheme, what that actually does for you.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you actually, call good plays and have good coaching and good
you
routes
use the personnel properly.
Yeah, like Tavon Austin is good again. What happened there? He's actually useful. I mean, he's overpaid as heck, but he probably gets like 40 yards from scrimmage a game. That's better than the 3 he was getting.
Oh, yeah. How many games? He basically went 3 years in the league where he would have 2 games where he'd get 150 yards, and then every other game he'd have like 4.
And somehow that earned him like a $40 million deal. I don't get it. I don't understand.
Look, I have multiple opinions on that organization, and a lot of them are not very positive. I'll just say that.
I like all of their players, though.
I do too, which is the bad thing.
They don't, and also, I don't think they have a single player that I don't like. Like, all their players I like. Sammy Watkins is a good dude. Todd Gurley's amazing. I have nothing against Goff. He's turned himself into a fine player.
That's the one
Aaron
guy I'm kind of
Donald
like hazy
amazing. On. Tremaine Johnson's really good.
Aaron Donald is
the most underappreciated defensive player in football.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's the best defensive lineman in football.
And I was looking up that draft. I think he's by far like the best player to come out of that draft.
Who was in that draft?
Mike Evans, Odell, Sammy Watkins.
I mean,
it's tough, but I think I would put Aaron Donald number 1 out of that draft.
Sammy Watkins wasn't in that draft?
Yeah, Sammy Watkins, remember? It was the wide receiver trifecta.
No.
Sammy went first. Sammy went ahead of Mike Evans.
Was not drafted the same year as Mike Evans, was he?
100%. 100%. Remember, we had this debate because everybody was like, oh, Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, or Odell Beckham, who's going to go first? And everybody's like, oh, Sammy Watkins is going to go first. It should be the 2014 NFL draft. I was looking it up today.
One moment, please.
Anytime, I'll wait.
Fill time.
I'm filling time by saying I'm 100% correct. And how much money should we put on this, Bradley? How confident are you? How confident? Oh yeah, service slow. I feel you.
It actually is. It shouldn't be. I pay for good internet.
But anyway, I don't know. There's a lot of people on that team I really, really like. It's just I hate to see it because it was robbed from a fan base that had to endure a ton of losing.
No, they screwed St. Louis.
They did. And that's close to my heart, if you guys haven't realized that by now. But anyway, I really actually hope they do pretty well in the playoffs. I like Sean McVay as well. Wade Phillips is a pretty good coach. I don't have anything against him. The only person I don't even really like on that team is probably Goff. But that's just because I thought some of the stuff he said when he came out of college was kind of stupid.
I can't believe you were right.
Yep.
Also, I disagree with you. I think there are 2 players I would take before Aaron Donald.
Really? Okay.
One is the best defensive player in football, Khalil Mack.
Oh, I forgot Khalil Mack was in that draft.
I think I would take Odell. Odell is a generational talent. So is Aaron Donald.
Right. You know what? I can't believe
he's so good.
I can't believe I forgot that because I brought that up the other day because the Rams had number 2 and number 12 picks in the first round, and they picked Greg Robinson from Auburn over Khalil Mack. And there was the potential to have Khalil Mack and Aaron Donald on the same defense, and that just would have been so fun to watch.
Now, was this the best wide receiver first round class ever? Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Odell, Brandon Cooks, Kelvin Benjamin. No busts.
And I think Michael Thomas was even in that draft too.
He was not a first rounder.
I think he was either second or third round, because there were some guys who were really good that were in the second, third round of that draft.
Well, the second round is a little... Well, the second round is pretty good too. Devontae Adams, Jordan Matthews, Marquise Lee. It's not as good, but it's pretty good.
And Martavius Bryant was a fourth round pick that year. That's
Allen Robinson.
That's a crazy good wide receiver class.
Good wide receiver class, man. I wish we could get a quarterback class like this. Maybe save the league. All right,
honestly,
anyway.
Sorry, that was a little random tangent there, but it was interesting to kind of, when you look back at past drafts, because you forget where people get drafted, and then you see like, oh wow, this guy's a Pro Bowler, and oh wow, Telvin Smith was drafted in the 5th round out of Florida State, and he's one of the best players on Jacksonville's defense.
Oh, well, I mean, you see that a lot in the NFL. You just miss on a guy. And a lot of times I think it's psychological where, and I heard this about a college basketball player, Donovan Mitchell, who's
for
balling
Utah
right now, but he sucked in college. And they asked him about it. He said, well, in college, I was taking 5 classes and like, you had work to do. Like, I now basketball is life. I wonder sometimes if it's the same thing. Like before, you had to worry about school. You were still, as a college kid, trying to figure out who you are and yourself socially. Probably partying too much because you're immature. When you're finally a professional, that's all you do.
Right.
So some of these guys, especially we see it a lot in running backs. Kareem Hunt is a great example, a low round pick that just ended up being a beast who might win Rookie of the Year. Speaking of which, we need to talk about that.
Talking about Rookie of the Year, okay.
Year-end awards. We haven't really talked about that, but we'll get there. This is supposed to be the college football segment.
Yes, it's college football segment. We're going on NFL.
Maybe let's stop the tangent.
Talking about Donovan Mitchell.
We'll add that as an addendum to the show. Let's continue to our next college football game. If you don't like our tangents, this isn't the show for you, unfortunately.
Unfortunately not.
When Weston and I started this show, it was because of these tangents, because we would just be sitting, watching a game, and talking about sports for 4 hours without stopping. So we just record ourselves doing that, and that's what we're doing. So if you don't like it, I apologize, but this is the way the show's always going to be.
And you should probably find a different place for your podcast needs then.
Yeah, but if you enjoy tangents and traveling with us down rabbit trails and red herrings and all that, welcome. We love you.
I mean, there's been a few shows where we didn't even get to half of our topics. And we ended up talking about something completely random from either 4 years ago, or you start talking about baseball and then you end up talking about, who's going to be the first pick in the NBA draft or something.
Yeah. I mean, I would say more than half of our shows either went way over time or we missed a couple topics. One of the two. And this is probably going to be one of those shows because we're already a good chunk in. And
we're already a good chunk in. And we
halfway done with our first segment. Great job, guys.
Hey, at least I said that we would spend most of our time talking about the college football playoff.
Tomorrow's the playoff day, and hopefully I get this episode tonight so that statement still rings true. Otherwise, later on today. Oh, the show will be up before those games. I promise
it has to be. If not, we are not playing basketball tomorrow before the games.
Anyway, there's a little inside joke. I'm so thrown off.
Anyway.
So phase 2 of our
college football playoffs. All right.
Bama versus Clemson. The three-peat. That isn't really a three-peat. Number 1
so pumped.
Versus number 4. Arguably the 2 best coaches in college football. Weston.
2 coaches I love.
Weston, take it away. What do you think is going to happen? Who wins?
Oh, man. This is very tough. This is almost head versus heart here. And
wow.
I know.
Wow. You basically just gave away that you think Clemson's got a good shot to win.
I absolutely believe Clemson's got
that you think they're going to win.
I don't think they're going to win, but honestly, I can't see this being any different from the past 2 games. I know there's no Deshaun Watson now, but these 2 teams are still stacked with talent. There may be a few different faces in these groups, but they're still amazingly talented and play pretty much the same style of football.
The teams are basically the same. The only differentiator, in my opinion, is Bama has better running backs. But the teams, they have great defenses. They have dual threat game manager quarterbacks, which is sort of a new type of breed.
Yeah, it's very different.
And good running games and
great coaching staffs.
And probably the two best coaches in college football.
And it's two teams that are very, 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 very familiar with each other. And that's why I think it's going to be another nail biter, just like what we've seen. It's going to basically come down to who gets the ball last and who basically limiting mistakes, who has the most turnovers. And that's honestly, I think Alabama is just Jalen Hurts has to atone for what happened last year, in my opinion.
He wasn't bad last year.
He wasn't bad. It's just I think he wants to atone for what happened last year.
So last year, if we're going to go back a second, Clemson beat Alabama in the national championship last year. The secondary got worn down.
It did.
Let me ask you a question. Does Bama have more depth in the secondary this year?
I believe they do, and I think the difference is I think you'll have hopefully a fully healthy Minkah Fitzpatrick.
If he gets, that dude is great.
That man is amazing. Should be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft.
He will be.
Because last year, if I remember correctly, Minkah was not 100% at all, and I think he actually missed quite a bit of the game last year. And that's going to be my main differentiator, as well as last season, Crimson Tide lost Eddie Jackson late in the year, right before the playoffs, and Eddie Jackson, strong safety, was a big part of the defense. And because Eddie Jackson went out, that slid Minkah Fitzpatrick to safety from corner, so that really just took it out of your secondary.
And I still think Bama would have won that game if, oh my gosh, Derrick Henry Jr.
Bo Scarborough?
If Bo Scarborough hadn't gotten hurt.
Because Bo
he was running all over the place, and then
he hurt his ankle, and it was just
and the running game just stopped.
Because Damian Harris is really good, but there's a reason why Damian Harris and Bo Scarborough are teamed up together. Because you need Damian Harris to get out there in the flat, be like the quicker kind of running back, like the Kenyon Drake to
like
the Derrick
Henry.
Yeldon. Yeah. I mean, it's just classic Nick Saban built team where you have the big bruising running back who's a freak of nature, and then you have your prototypical kind of really quick running back who's more of the finesse guy.
So Kenyon Drake, by the way, is legit.
I told everyone.
You did. I didn't think he was going to be great in the NFL, and he has been amazing.
Just on like the side topic on Kenyon Drake real quick, he was one of my favorite. Honestly though,
here comes the tangent.
That's right. Kenyon Drake, and you'll attest to this, Bradley. Every time we'd watch a Bama game together, I loved watching Kenyon Drake run because he seemed so different from everybody else on the field. He almost looked like a wide receiver playing running back to me for some reason because he was like taller and lankier, and he was just so fast. And then you just see him get the ball in an end around and then just shoot away from everybody else. And then he was just really entertaining to watch. It just always seemed like he'd have like a broken arm or something that would limit him for a couple of games, and he'd come back for the playoffs.
So far in the NFL, he's not had bad injury concerns. So I hope that continues. Anyway.
Hope that continues, yes.
Please. Pick the game. What do you think is going to happen?
Pick the game. I think it's going to be another nail biter. I'll actually give a score prediction right now.
Wow.
I know.
I didn't do that for the Georgia game.
I didn't either. No, I'm feeling real risky right now.
I like it.
This is standing out to me. Bama, 31. Clemson,
27. 28.
I was going to go 28, but yeah.
Okay.
Clemson, 28. I think it's going to be really, really close. It's going to unfortunately come down to special teams and turnovers, but we'll see what happens. And I really think Bama's got a good shot to win this because I know they're playing with house money, and because they lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, in their minds, they should have been the number 1 seed, and they let it slip away because they couldn't perform against Auburn. And Nick Saban spent every day since the Iron Bowl reminding them of that fact.
If you recall from the game last year, Clemson had to do a game-winning drive to win.
Yes.
The two primary players of that drive, Deshaun Watson in the NFL.
Yep.
Mike Williams
in the NFL.
Alabama's going to win.
Yeah.
Kelly Bryant has been phenomenal this year in filling in for Deshaun Watson. You can't replace that kind of talent. 2 first-round talents against a defense like Bama's that is arguably better this year than it was last year's. Minkah Fitzpatrick is a surefire top 5 pick. If the 49ers don't take him, they're crazy. Yeah, give me Bama. I actually think this game might be more of a blowout than the Georgia game.
It's kind of funny because you're thinking that way with Georgia, and you have the Georgia.
I wanted to pick Oklahoma. Because I'm so pessimistic.
You're so pessimistic, and I guess that just goes to show kind of where our fandoms kind of are, because you're thinking, oh, Bama's going to win this kind of almost handedly.
Bama might win this by 17 points.
Wow. Okay.
I think Bama has this one in the back. Clemson is great. Clemson deserves to be number 1. Their defense is phenomenal. I just feel like every phase of their team is a slightly worse version of Alabama. Their quarterback's probably equal with Jalen Hurts. Their running backs aren't nearly as good as Bama's. Their defense is slightly worse than Bama's. I just think that Bama is marginally better at every position, which will end up in them winning handedly.
And the thing that I really think gives Alabama a leg up, and I don't think there's been as many people talking about this, because Alabama didn't have to play in the SEC title game, they've had a lot of time off, and historically, when Bama has a lot of time off, it helps them get healthy, and it makes me think back to Eddie Lacy, going back to the 2012 SEC title game. Eddie Lacy down the stretch was not healthy at all, and Bama ended up getting into a lot of close games, but he was able to rest up a little bit, and then for the national championship and SEC title game, Eddie Lacy was healthy, and you saw what happened.
Alabama usually plays a tough team in week 1.
Every year.
When have they ever lost that game?
Never.
Nick Saban is better than anyone at getting his team prepared and motivated to play a game, especially on rest. I mean, have they ever lost a game coming off a bye? I mean, I feel
not
like
that
they
I can
haven't.
think of. No, not that comes to mind.
I don't bet against Alabama. It's sort of like the Patriots. I don't bet against them. Yes, they may lose, just like Bama lost last year. It could happen. If Georgia also wins, I hope it happens in the national championship. But I don't bet against Alabama. Nick Saban is just the best to ever do it. It's as simple as that. You can hate him if you want. He's not the nicest guy.
No, he's not.
He sometimes treats the college kids in ways that I don't appreciate because he's so highly paid and they're not getting anything, but we don't have to get into that. We're not getting into it. I really wasn't intending that to get us in. Sometimes I say that jokingly, jab, let's talk about it. Not this time.
I know this time you weren't.
But he is the best ever at this.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't bet against greatness.
And it's just a phenomenal thing to watch how great of an era of college football this is. I know a lot of people don't really like it because it does seem to be the same teams there all the time, but there's a reason why it's those same teams there all the time. It's just because they're so great. Clemson just got there to the top of the mountain, and they just continually get back there. But it just goes to show you how great of coaching staffs each university has.
I mean, there's so many great coaches right now. You have Harbaugh, who I think is a great coach, who I think will still do a great job at Michigan. You have Urban Meyer, who, even though we don't like him, is a good coach.
Right.
Nick Saban, Dabo's climbed the ranks. Kirby Smart's looking like he's going to get there. You have Chris Peterson at Washington, who's doing
Chris Peterson
so well with less. Chip Kelly's coming back in the fold. Say what you want about Chip Kelly. He's a great offensive coach who's really going to turn UCLA into a powerhouse.
You have, I just blanked on his name. Yeah, Herm Edwards going to Arizona State.
Herm Edwards. Oh, that's going to be a disaster.
It might be.
It's going to be a disaster.
You have Mark Richt down in Miami rebuilding the U. And say what you want about him because he's glaringly consistent and it seems like he doesn't win the big game. He's a really good coach.
Miami's going to win at least 10 games every year for the foreseeable future. It's just what Mark Richt does. They may never win an ACC championship, but I promise you, he will have 7-10 win seasons by the time he's done with his 10-year career there.
10-year career. That's exactly what it's going to be. And you have to give credit. I also want to give credit to Lincoln Riley as well, taking over the Oklahoma program.
Did a great job.
I was shocked at how good of a job he's actually done.
Because if you remember, Bob Stoops stepped down in June of last year.
Oh, it was way late in the game.
Or
That's
I guess
why
this year. Tomorrow it will be last year.
Right.
Very
Depends on when the
confused.
show's released.
It's going up tonight.
Right.
I swear.
But I mean, and you have to think, I know he was offensive coordinator of the program, but he hasn't been there that long, and he's a really, really young coach. I mean, what is he, mid to early 30s?
Yeah, something like that.
And he's a really good coach.
Great job. A great job.
I mean, I'm not necessarily a fan of Oklahoma or anything,
Big 12
but
in general.
or Big 12 in general, but he's a dang good football coach. I have mad respect for him. I also want to wait and see approach with him, but I want to see what Scott Frost does at Nebraska because I think he's a dang good coach as well.
I wish he had come to the SEC.
I do too.
I really wish he would have been hired for the Florida job because I would have loved to have seen how he competed in the SEC.
Because I bet it just would have been phenomenal to watch. Had Nebraska not have opened up and had Nebraska not been, where he's from and where he played.
The dream job.
It's his dream job,
it's
absolutely.
Why Kirby left Alabama. It's a dream job. You can't give it up.
There's either that one school that's number one, and then there's the school that's 1A.
Your alma mater.
Right. So that's what happened with Kirby there, because I feel like Kirby had in his mind, I'm either going to ride it out here at Bama and take over for Nick, or if Georgia opens up and I get that job, then I'm going to Georgia. Those were his two options.
Yep. I actually think that's what Will Muschamp thought until he got swayed by the Florida job. He was the coach in waiting at Texas.
Which was a great job at the time.
He wanted the Georgia job. And a lot of Georgia fans wanted him. Whew! Dodge that bullet.
Dodge that bullet.
And then the Florida job opened up and he couldn't resist. But that's sort of the same situation. These guys have dream jobs that they want more than anything. And
that's kind of how Dan Mullen ended up back at Florida, because, I mean, was very comfortable and had a great situation at Mississippi State because that team had never been as good as it had been under Dan Mullen. And then, Florida opens up and the ties to kind of come back home were too strong, where you had success and where your kids were born and everything like that. And just
speaking
going
of
back
Mark
to Gainesville.
Richt, that's Dan Mullen's sort of. I hope he has success, but he certainly feels like
like a Mark Richt.
Like I'm gonna win 9 games every year. Just do just enough not to get fired, but we're never gonna win a national championship. Sort of what Dan Mullen feels like. He's a good coach, though. He'll do a good job at Florida.
He's a great recruiter. I mean, Mississippi State, no offense to them, that's not necessarily the place you would expect a lot of kids to go.
No.
So that's a really good job.
Unlike Hugh Freeze, he was able to get kids to come to Mississippi
legally
without breaking the rules. He's a good coach. He'll do a good job. So, yeah, I think Alabama's going to win big. You think they're going to win 31-28. I guess I'll put a score on the 2 games. You want to put a score on the Georgia-Oklahoma game?
The Georgia-Oklahoma game? Ooh, that's going to be tough. I think it's going to be... I think it's going to be something along the same lines. Maybe like a 35 to 28 kind of thing. Something like that.
I'm going to go 28-24.
28-24? Okay, I like it.
And then the Bama game, give me 31-17.
Okay.
So 14
points
instead of 17 points. Yeah.
I could see that happening.
Feels right.
Yeah, it does feel right. You were saying that, you said the 31, and I was like, ooh, 17. That sounds about like a right number.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for our first segment, now that we're almost an hour into the show.
That's right.
What are we going to talk about next, Weston?
Well, I don't know about you, but since we're still on the football track, would you like to just jump all the way down to our last topic? Since it kind of goes hand in hand, I think, here, since we're already talking about coaches, talking about Black Monday.
Black Monday, the NFL coaching carousel.
The day is upon us.
And we've actually had a lot of moves before Monday. Usually, and we will still see it. We'll probably see like 5, 6, 7 coaches get canned tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. And some of them are going to be shocking and out of left field, and other ones, potentially like the situation in Chicago, you're going to see the writing on the wall for the past couple of years.
So as of today, before today, before this week 17, we had 2 firings. We had, Ben McAdoo got fired, and then Marvin Lewis agreed to part ways with the Bengals.
Right.
Today, it is being reported that John Fox is being let go from the Bears, that Oh gosh, I'm blanking.
Chuck Pagano?
Chuck Pagano, thank you.
You're welcome.
He's finally being let go from the Colts. God, he's a horrible coach.
About time.
And that's it, right? Those are the only two so far?
Only two so far. Then there's a lot of rumors out there. There's the rumblings that there could still be a change in Cleveland. It looks like Dirk Cutter is going to keep his job in Tampa, but
how?
I honestly don't know.
That team was like the NFC South favorite this year, and they won, 4 games?
Yes, and I have a friend who, he was the guy who would call in week 3 talking about firing Dirk Cutter, and then now he's like, we're playing really well. I mean, we've had so many injuries, and we've had some.
Won.
No,
they haven't won a game.
He said the stuff. It's like the play calling's gotten a whole lot better, and we've had a lot of close losses. I was like, is that what you want? Is close losses from your NFL team?
It's not a win. Usually, games in the NFL are close because the teams are close in talent. You're not going to blow everyone out or get blown out every week.
I spent 10 years as a fan of a team that had like a lot of, moral victories and a lot of close and almost wins. Yeah.
Jeff Fisher is Mr. 8-8.
You beat Seattle up in Seattle and then lose to a hapless Jets team on the road or something. It's like I've been through that. That's not where you want to be as a fan. And if you come in as a favorite and the team everybody expects to break out and you get some big free agent signings in there and people wanting to come to Tampa, the last thing you want is a coach that's like, well, he's done an all right job. So, I mean, he's probably not going to take us to a title anyway, but we really don't want to shake things up right now.
They need to shake things up. That team's garbage.
I mean, I know Jameis likes him, but how...
Jameis isn't good. I'm going to say it.
Wow, okay.
I'm going to say that Jameis is not good and Mariota is hurt.
I agree with you because Mariota has been seemingly hurt his entire career. But
Mariota may also not be good.
I also want to see what happens because might be a spoiler alert here. I expect the Titans to make a change. I want to see what Mariota can do with a different offensive... Spoiler alert! I think the Tennessee Titans are going to make a change because I feel like Mike Mularkey is in that same kind of group as Dirk Cutter.
They need to fire him so bad.
I mean, what kind of offensive system are they running?
One from 1984.
That's exactly why I think... I want to see what...
1984 with a little sprinkle of quarterback option.
Yeah, that's exactly
that's the offense.
It's 2 power running backs, a tight end that runs out into the flat, and don't get me wrong, love watching Delaney Walker play.
Top 5 tight end in the league.
Oh, absolutely.
So underrated.
So consistent. So consistent. You know what you're going to get from him every week. And then you have some really good wide receivers that, Corey Davis, he'll get there eventually. He's getting a lot of targets.
They have 3 legitimately talented wide receivers. Corey Davis, Rashard Matthews, and Eric Decker. All 3 really good.
Absolutely. And then you just don't see really any improvement
a top 5,
from them.
How is that team not better? This is their offense. They have Mariota, who's supposedly good. 3 really good receivers. Delaney Walker, who's a top 5 tight end. 2 really good running backs in DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. And a top 5 offensive line. How in the world is that team not better?
And the thing that they didn't have as well last year that they have better this year is a defense. Their defense is better this year.
Even if their defense was bad, that offense should be so good. I mean, it's the Dallas Cowboys offense with better receivers.
Yeah, exactly.
And
supposedly a better quarterback coming out of the draft. Because, I mean, Mariota was higher than Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I just don't understand. That's why I fully expect the Titans to make a move. And
well, I think that's why John Gruden is interested in that job. And if you remember from our reporting earlier in the season, John Gruden is interested in the Titans job. We don't know if he's going to take it or not, but he's certainly pondering. Which gets us to, unless you had another remark.
I was actually going to make that same segue and bring up the Titans and Gruden.
So the Raiders, I assume, are going to fire Jack Del Rio.
That's what it seems like now.
They, according to Adam Schefter, want John Gruden and have offered him a stake in the team to come coach. This is something I have not seen done before in football, ever.
And you've made it as a coach or a football personality when you can basically go in and say, well, I want to be the highest paid coach in football, and I also want an ownership stake in the team. And then an owner is like, okay, if that's what gets you here, then we'll do it. And if any team would do it, it's the Raiders.
And I think it's a brilliant idea. Just as a real world example, what do a lot of companies do to get employees to work harder. They offer employee stock programs.
Right.
Because if you feel invested in the company, you'll work harder, you'll do a better job. Of course, the NFL is a little different because you assume anyone who is working in that is working as hard as they possibly can because they don't want to lose their job. But if you give a coach a little ownership stake, then maybe they can see more eye to eye with management, because not only will they be thinking about the team, but they will also have to think about the big picture kind of thing. It feels like it would make things more symbiotic and
cohesive and everything.
It seems like a good idea. Plus, it's a great way to lure a coach.
Well, I honestly, because I don't think John Gruden wanted to go to Oakland, is the thing. I don't think he really wanted the Raiders job.
He already did that, and he didn't like it very much.
Exactly. That's why I think Mark Davis went in there and was basically like, if we have any shot at him, we have to do it. Because otherwise he's not going to say yes. Because there's already some bridges burned there, and it wasn't like the bridges were mended like they were in Tampa.
Now, I would ask one question. John Gruden, we both think John Gruden's a good coach, right?
Right.
Do we actually have proof of that, or do we just think it?
Well,
what's the last really good team John Gruden had? 2004? 2005?
Well, when did he get fired? Because I know he got fired when they were 9-7.
Right?
Because they were 9-7, and he got fired, and it was out of left field. And then ever since then, the Bucs really haven't been good.
He was fired in 2009. Man, I'm good.
There you go. You got one of those right today.
Wow.
Sorry, I got to throw shade.
I mean, and yeah, they were 9-7, but he got fired because they lost 4 in a row to miss the playoffs.
Right.
What? And his quarterback that year was it the Canadian guy, Jeff Garcia?
In 2009?
Or not Garcia? What's that his name?
Jeff Garcia.
In 2009. Was that his?
I think that might have been his last year in Tampa, and then he ended up going. Did he go to Philly after that, or was he in Philly before?
He was in Philly before.
Okay.
Anyway, regardless, horrible.
Because he didn't really have a great quarterback ever. I mean, he had Brad Johnson when they won the Super Bowl, but he never had. He never had a franchise quarterback.
Correct, which certainly hurt him. But they also never really tried to get a franchise quarterback.
In their defense, they did try. They traded for Jake Plummer. Do you remember that from Denver? Because the Broncos drafted Jay Cutler, and Jake Plummer was coming off 2 really good years, and Jake Plummer said, no, I don't want out. I'm not going to be a bridge quarterback for some young guy. And then they traded Jake Plummer to the Bucs, and then he retired because he didn't want to come to Tampa. So, I mean, they did try to get a younger, like, kind of quarterback in their prime who was established, but he didn't want to come to Tampa.
They got Big Ben's old backup. What was his name?
Charlie Batch.
Really big guy.
The really like Leftwich?
Yeah,
Byron Leftwich. Yeah, because he was supposed to be the franchise quarterback in Jacksonville.
He was garbage.
And then David Garrard ended up taking his job, and David Garrard had a few really good years in Jacksonville before he got shown the door ahead of his time.
So regardless, John Gruden's clearly a good coach. Is he good enough to be worth a stake in your company? I mean, that's an awful lot.
Honestly, I think he is, because he's really has a unique situation, because he's been studying the game and working with young quarterbacks even though he's been out of the league. Because who else has had the interactions that he's had with Jameis Winston, David Carr, Andrew Luck, Mariota, all of these guys?
I mean, maybe not as intimate, but you would think a lot of coaches have, just because of the draft process. All of those guys interviewed with all the teams. Certainly they worked out with all the teams. Right.
It's just like under a different circumstance where it's like really casual.
Less professional circumstance.
And it's just they're hanging out and on TV. It's just really different. He's been analyzing the game for, I mean, almost the past 7-8 years.
And having a brother that's still in it, I'm sure helps keep you informed and up to date.
And it also helps that he's relatively younger. It's not like he's Bruce Arians who's getting his first shot to be a head coach when he's really already kind of up there in age. Because, I mean, John Gruden's only 54.
I would love to see him get another shot. God, I love John Gruden.
I mean, honestly, just for our selfish reasons, I would have loved to have seen him back in Tampa, because that team instantly becomes much more entertaining from a fan's perspective.
I don't understand why they don't do that.
I guess they just don't want to pay him. Because, I mean, he obviously, this is where he wanted to be. He still lives here, for goodness sakes. I mean, he's always around Tampa doing something different whenever he's not doing Monday Night Football.
And his ceremony for being inducted, by the way, if you didn't know, he was inducted into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Ring of Honor.
Ring of Honor. Those are always really cool
last
to watch.
Week. They had Warren Sapp and Mike Allstott and Derek Brooks.
It was like Brad Johnson.
And they ran the game-winning play or something.
That
it was so cheesy and
it was
corny.
kind of cool though.
It was cool, and he was so animated. I love John Gruden. He's great. He
John
lit up the
Gruden's
crowd.
awesome.
I've never seen so many people stay in their seats during a halftime at an NFL game.
Oh, and absolutely. I mean, most of the people who went to that game were there to see halftime.
Oh yeah.
I will just be honest with you.
Or they were Falcons fans. There were a lot of Falcons fans. And my dad's a Falcons fan, which is why we went to that game. I'm neutral. I don't really care about either team. I just like football. It may have been 50-50, which I guess isn't horrible for a Bucs game when the Bucs are out of it, but there were a lot of Falcons fans.
Yeah, because I mean, the Bucs have been out of it for a long time, and most people thought they were going to get wrecked by the Falcons, and I think the only reason there were really any Bucs fans there was because of Gruden.
Yeah. And it ended up being a pretty good game. So other coaches that we expect to get fired.
Bill O'Brien, 100%.
Bill O'Brien with the
gone.
Texans. It might as well leave now. And I actually think he's a pretty good coach. I don't know what happened. And the sad thing, though, is if Deshaun Watson doesn't get hurt, he keeps his job because they probably make the playoffs.
Well, the thing that's coming out now is apparently the past couple of years, the relationship between him and Rick Smith has just been steadily deteriorating. And it's apparently at the point of no return now. And the owner, Rick Smith, has been the owner's guy for years. And he's built a very good roster in Houston. And the report that's coming out now is Deshaun Watson was Rick Smith's pick and not Bill O'Brien's pick. Bill O'Brien apparently wanted a different quarterback. I didn't hear who.
Well, that's a death sentence right there.
Exactly. So it's because there's a lot of the whole argument you can't fire him because Deshaun hasn't gotten a full chance, and you guys were really good with Deshaun, but if Bill O'Brien didn't even want Deshaun in the first place...
I mean, he tried not to play him.
Yeah, absolutely. He started Tom Savage, yeah. So I think that really actually confirms that report that Deshaun Watson was the front office pick and not Bill O'Brien's pick.
Yeah, he's definitely gone. We already said Malarkey and Jack Del Rio with Tennessee and Oakland, respectively. I would have said Cutter before you just told me that they're sticking with him. I wish he was gone because he's horrible.
I really don't think he's a good coach, and he definitely shouldn't be play calling and being the head coach. I mean, I think he's a pretty good offensive coordinator, and I'll just say pretty good. But I just don't think... I thought that whole decision-making process of...
It's just weird.
It's we're afraid he's got interviews scheduled with Miami, and there's a chance they may hire him, so let's fire our established coach, Lovie Smith.
Who's doing fine.
Who's doing a pretty good job, and let's just bring in Dirk Cutter and just hand him over the keys just so he doesn't leave.
Weird.
It's
it's the exact same thing that the Giants did with Ben McAdoo. Basically the exact same thing. I don't know.
And you've seen it hasn't worked out. It
doesn't work. Because, as I've heard Dominic Foxworth talk about a lot, being an offensive coordinator and being a head coach are two completely different skill sets.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because you could be the best coordinator in football doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach or a head coach.
And that's why Sean McVay and Wade Phillips deserves a ton of credit out there in Los Angeles because
he's the assistant head coach. That might be in his title.
I think it should be because, that's really eased Sean McVay into that job because Sean McVay can focus on being the offensive coordinator.
And if you watch the Rams play, when the defense is on the field, a lot of times Sean McVay literally isn't watching. He's drawing plays. He's 100% focused on the offense, and he lets Wade Phillips have the defense, which is a great decision because Wade Phillips is one of the all-time great defensive coordinators. Oh,
absolutely, and he was a dang good head coach in his time. It's just different situations got him out of Dallas, and mainly that Jason Garrett is low-key Jerry Jones' son or something.
It's a shame Wade Phillips is so old because I think if he was younger when he had that Dallas job and lost it, he would have got another shot.
I do too.
It's sort of like the Lovie Smith Bears situation where he does a great job with the Bears, kind of gets fired out of nowhere, but then immediately gets a second chance with the Bucks, who then in turn do the same thing. But I see similarities there. But Lovie Smith is much younger than Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips is very old now.
Wade Phillips is very old, and that's why I think Rams either need to keep that system going and have somebody else in mind, or Sean McVay needs to steadily start easing in and taking over some defensive.
Sort of the plan. Of course, you got to have someone in mind for defense, and I'm sure you look at your own defensive assistants to do that. But I imagine, he's so young. He's 30. I mean, that's barely old enough to know the offenses well enough to coach it. Like, he's got a lot of learning to do still.
And let's be honest. I mean, he wasn't even the offensive coordinator in Washington. He was the quarterback's coach. And, I mean, he was like a co-offensive coordinator and an assistant. So, I mean, this is his first... I mean, he wasn't even an offensive coordinator.
Well, because Jay Gruden calls the plays.
And, yeah, Jay Gruden calls the plays, and that's...
You hesitated, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're talking about the Redskins, right? Like,
yeah, I
didn't just completely bung that up.
I paused for a second because I almost said the wrong name. Ooh. I almost said Kyle Shanahan because Shanahan used to be there in D.C. I'm sorry.
Anyway...
I think there's going to be a couple other coaches out of left field.
Who else is out there? Because I'm thinking about it. Todd Bowles with the Jets. I think he's kept his job.
No, he signed an extension yesterday, so he's there.
That's
and
smart.
Deservedly
Todd Bowles
so.
Is a great coach.
He is. He just kind of got raw into the deal, and it shows his coaching acumen right there.
I think Adam Gase keeps his job.
I heard Caldwell's out in Detroit.
Oh, that's a good one. Caldwell should be gone. Harbaugh is an interesting one. They made the playoffs, so I don't know if they would actually do it.
I think he's staying. I think there's just too much equity built up there.
Sometimes you just need a change. But I mean, I know it was talked about. I wouldn't do it because I think John Harbaugh is a great coach.
I mean, I think if you're going to make a change in that organization and want something to go differently,
get rid of Flacco.
Yeah, it starts with the quarterback. Yeah, because there's a reason why
he's overpaid and not very good.
And there's a reason why the Ravens have basically played the same style of football forever since Flacco's been there, because that's all he can do. I mean, he's very limited, and I mean, he won a Super Bowl at the exact right time for him in his career because he got that huge extension.
Well, he sort of had Eli syndrome, where he just had a playoff run where he was so hot and was just amazing for one playoff stretch. Got a Super Bowl, and he turned it into a $50 million contract.
And that's what you got to do. You got to be hot at the right time. And honestly, he's starting to do that this year. He's been playing a lot better down the stretch, and because the Ravens were falling out of the playoff picture, and now they're just made the playoffs.
Well, I think part of that is they realized Alex Collins is really good. But anyway, that's really all I can think
Bruce
of.
Arians, maybe, depending on whether he retires. It wouldn't be a firing.
I don't like including that in this Black Monday talk because that'd be his choice.
Right. And the only other thing would be potentially Hugh Jackson if they go back on their word, because, I mean, it would be tough for him to keep his job at 0-16.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a toss-up. But even that's not that many coaches. Even if all the ones we just talked about get fired, that's really only like 5 coaches being fired.
I think they were expecting more coaches to be fired. I think the whole Tampa and Washington saying we're keeping Jay Gruden and Dirk Cutter respectively is what really threw a loop through the whole thing. Because if you had to guess, Malarkey, Gruden, Cutter, Del Rio,
I wouldn't guess Gruden.
Bryant.
I think Gruden's done a fine job. As many injuries as they've had, I don't think they can fire him this year.
I don't think so either, and I think he's a pretty good coach. But if you're on the outside looking in and you've looked at the Redskins' history and coaching staffs, you would expect him to be gone.
Because Snyder is emotional and temperamental and dumb?
Yeah, pretty much. I will give him credit. It looks like he's starting to get a little more patient.
Then he needs to pay Kirk Cousins.
I mean, he definitely does. I don't think that's his fault, though. I think that's really Bruce Allen just not being able to make a decision.
But he's the boss. Like, he's in charge. He signs the paychecks. It's his decision.
He is, but I don't know.
And you can't tell me that he's finally deciding to be hands-off with the team when he's been hands-on his entire ownership.
Well, the thing is, it's like the sticky situation that's coming out with the GM suing Scott McLaughlin, where he got basically fired with cause right before the free agency and the offseason started.
Mhm.
And then Bruce Allen just took over and was basically running the whole team and then kind of took it in a different direction. So that's the thing where, because otherwise I would say Dan Snyder would have intervened more in that, because it seemed like it was really Bruce Allen's decision to let him go. And it was like basically just philosophical differences.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Okay, that was Black Monday. I'm sure we missed some.
There's probably a like glaringly obvious coach that's going to get canned that we just don't remember.
I can't think. I could see. I could see the Broncos coach.
Vance Joseph. No, I heard
could
he's
see
pretty
him
much
being
gone.
one and done.
I heard he's pretty much gone, and there's some talk that Kubiak wants to come back down on the sidelines and at least be an offensive coordinator, which is kind of just random to me because it seems like they've been hiring all these Kubiak guys, and then Kubiak just comes right back. I don't know.
Hey man, Super Bowl winning coach.
Oh gosh, let's not even get into that.
Super Bowl winning coach with a great offense.
Super Bowl winning coach with a great offense, running through Brock Osweiler, and then
80-year-old Peyton Manning,
and then like 8% of what Peyton Manning used to be.
So off the cuff, no prep at all.
Okay.
Because I thought of it when we were doing our college football segment.
Go for it.
Rookie of the year, offenses. Go.
Offensive rookie of the year. 0 prep. Wow. Kamara.
I think I agree. I would rather Kareem Hunt get it because I think Kareem Hunt has shouldered way more of a load and done better. But they stopped relying on him for like the middle part of the season. He had like a 5-game stretch where he was useless.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yes.
it's because he wasn't getting the ball. I agree. Kamara had a great year and he's amazing. And I'm with you.
It's just his second half, and then once they actually decided that, wow, Adrian Peterson does not need to be a focal point of our offense, they actually gave the ball to Kamara and Mark Ingram, then the Saints just took off.
I think Fournette doesn't because he had a rough second half of the year because of injuries.
And then he had the one game where he was suspended. And
Christian McCaffrey had a great year. He had so many receptions, but he had a slow start to the year. Yeah. And there weren't really any quarterbacks to choose from because Deshaun Watson got hurt.
Otherwise, if Deshaun was healthy, run away.
Got it. Easy.
Run away.
Easy.
Oh my goodness. The numbers he was putting up were phenomenal.
All right. Defensive rookie of the year.
Defensive rookie of the year, that's a tough one. I may have you go first on that one.
I think there's an obvious one, and it's the man that completely flipped the Saints defense around. That is Lattimore, the Saints' number 1 corner, who is amazing. He's so good. I think
Saints
he wins
missing piece.
I think he's a runaway defense rookie of the year.
You know what? You're right. I was blanking on him for some reason because I was thinking more. I wasn't thinking secondary for some reason. I was thinking
linebackers.
I was thinking linebackers and pass rushers.
Did TJ Watt have a good year?
That's kind of what I was thinking. It's like, did TJ Watt have a good year?
Which he did, but
I mean, he did absolutely.
He cost James Harrison his job, which is another thing that isn't on our docket that we should talk about, but we don't have to because time constraints.
No, let's do it.
James Harrison, cut from the Steelers, signed by the Patriots. He was mad because he wasn't getting enough playing time. The Steelers say that the playing time was discussed before he signed the contract, and all the Steelers players are mad at him. So if all the Steelers players agree that he is being a jerk, then he's being a jerk.
Well, there's the reports like people brought up, why would you cut James Harrison? And he goes to the Patriots and gives all the intel. And then Bud Dupree's like, what intel is he going to give them? He slept during all of our meetings, the ones he showed up for, and the other ones he didn't show up for. He was being disruptive and trying to like make the meetings about himself instead of about actually coaching and what's good for the team.
He was really bad in the locker room from all reports. And it's a shame because he's one of the great Steelers of all time, which is really saying something. Because the Steelers historically have some of the best defensive players ever.
Right.
And James Harrison is their all-time sacks leader. He'll probably have his number retired by the Steelers, assuming they can patch all this up after he retires.
Assuming after. Yeah, it seems like it's gotten to be a pretty rocky relationship lately.
But he's one of the best Steelers ever. Right. He's up there. So it's a shame it ends like this, going to the Patriots, where he will probably help the Patriots beat the Steelers in the AFC Championship game.
Probably.
But, you know, it happens.
It happens.
Okay, that was a nice tangent. Back to what we were talking about. MVP.
MVP, all right.
Who the heck wins MVP?
I'm clueless now. I mean, I still may go with that Russell Wilson pick just because he accounted for so much of his team's offense.
Let me, as we do this, I'm checking scores live.
Check scores live. Go for it.
They're currently losing to Arizona 17-7. They have to win to make the playoffs, and they need the Falcons to lose.
They're probably not going to make the playoffs, but it's just the thing.
If they miss the playoffs, he's not going to win.
He's not going to win. He would just still be my personal pick for it.
Who do you think's going to win? Like, I get that. Like, my personal pick would be Todd Gurley. I think they're going to give it to Tom Brady. I hope and pray that Todd Gurley gets it. I think Tom Brady's going to win it by default. I really do.
Kind of like the whole situation where it's like, well, we don't know who to give it to, so let's just give him another one.
And you know the shame is, why couldn't this be the year that that Khalil Mack, like Luke
J.J.
Kuechly,
Watt when he had the good years.
One of those amazing defensive players could have had a spectacular season because they could have won it. It never happens where a defensive player has a chance. This is the year, but no defensive players stood out this year. Like Khalil Mack is great. He's amazing. Wasn't his best year. I mean,
that's the thing. It's tough because, I mean, honestly, I'd put Carson Wentz, even though he got injured, ahead of Tom Brady.
You can't.
You
he missed too many games.
I mean, that's just the thing. I would feel very bad about it if it went to Tom Brady, just because, I mean, he's had a good year, but I don't think he's had a year worthy of being the MVP. It's more of like,
the problem is, I don't think anyone's had a year worthy of being the MVP, other than Carson Wentz was having it, and then he got hurt, and he's missed too many games to win it, I think.
And the thing is, you've had some skill position players who have done really well. Like, I mean, I'd say DeAndre Hopkins should be in the conversation, but his team has just been so bad, even though he's been balling even without Deshaun Watson.
I think if one thing we've learned is that your team has to at least make the playoffs to win MVP.
Right.
I couldn't tell you the last time an MVP was from a non-playoff team. There's not great options. There just isn't.
I mean, because it started out with Alex Smith almost being the runaway favorite for the MVP. Then the Chiefs had that lull in the middle of the season.
I mean, if the Chargers somehow squeeze into the playoffs, they need to win and like two teams to lose. If they squeeze in, does Phillip Rivers have a chance?
I mean, he's in the conversation. He's had an amazing year, and I honestly wouldn't mind that. Because I don't want to look at it as everybody but Tom Brady needs to win the award, but I also don't think you should just... I hate it when an award is given to somebody by default. Like, well, we can't really think of another guy, so I mean, Tom Brady, he's real good, and let's just add to his legacy here.
It's just who else gets it. Like,
because
out of quarterbacks, he probably is the most deserving. Maybe Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson, I don't think has had a great year. He's put up some stats that are impressive, like the percentage of his team's offense and touchdowns and stuff, but his stats aren't that good, and even beyond the stats, watching the games, he hasn't been that good.
That's the thing why I would honestly give it to him, because I just think his team is just that bad now.
But his team's not bad. I think we've argued about this before. His running back situation is bad.
And his O-line situation is bad.
And that's one that I was expecting to improve. If you remember after the trade deadline, I said that Dwayne Brown trade was going to be all the difference. Because Dwayne Brown's good, but for some reason it hasn't helped. And the fact that it hasn't helped kind of makes me think maybe it's not the offensive line. Maybe it's because Russell Wilson doesn't know how to step up. Like, because I've watched Seahawks games where Dwayne Brown, great left tackle in the NFL, has been for years, has his guy, is pushing him around the quarterback like you're supposed to do, and Russell Wilson literally turns around to do his little spin move and runs right into the defender because he can't step up. And maybe that's part of the problem. It's tough as an offensive lineman to protect your quarterback when you don't know where the heck your quarterback is.
That's kind of the thing. I think it's more of they need to get the right people to basically support the offensive scheme.
But how you can't support that? Like, the only way to block for Russell Wilson is to lock your guy up. You can't push him around the quarterback, which is what guys usually do when they get beat immediately, is they can easily push them past the quarterback. Well, when your quarterback's consistently running backwards instead of stepping up, it's just sort of opened my eyes a little bit, because he's got a great receiving core. He's got a great tight end.
He's got a great receiver.
He's got
a great...
Lockett and Paul Richardson are very good.
They're very fast, small guys.
Very good. Doug Baldwin's amazing.
You can't tell me Doug Baldwin's That's why I said he's got a really good receiver. Because Doug Baldwin's amazing.
He's a top 10er right there.
But
I'll fight you.
Well, I agree with you.
I mean,
anybody that... Okay, I was about to say.
Anyone wants to tell me Doug Baldwin isn't a top 10 receiver in the league, I will fight you.
Because I think Doug Baldwin's
Same thing
great.
With Keenan Allen.
Oh, yeah, Keenan Allen. I mean, the health concerns, I'm so glad he stayed healthy this year, but other than that, that's the only knock you have on Keenan Allen, his health concerns.
And like Stevania Bell, ESPN's injury expert on all sports, she has two classes of injuries for players. She has the luck injuries, like the bad luck injuries, and she has like the this is a real problem injuries. So things like soft tissue injuries, consistent knee and ankle
like
and
chronic
calf issues.
Hip issues, things like that.
Alshon Jeffrey has chronic injury problems.
Right.
He injures his calf. She calls it soft tissue. Keenan Allen tore his ACL. That's a luck injury. You just get hit the wrong way, you tear your ACL. And a punctured kidney.
Yeah.
Like, that's all just really bad luck. It's not anything he did to get that punctured kidney. It just kind of happened. So I don't think he has injury problems. I think he just got injured. So that distinction, I think, is important.
It's a good distinction, yes. It's just, going back to the Seahawks situation, it's tough for Dwayne Brown to come in there like halfway through the year and adjust to a completely different quarterback and everything. So I think that's part of the reason, and he was also a part of a much better O-line, because I think just the rest of that O-line just isn't good either.
I agree that O-line isn't good. Don't let me try and tell you otherwise. I'm not arguing that the O-line isn't good. Saying that Russell Wilson doesn't do anything to help his O-line.
I agree with that as well. I mean, his mobility helps a little bit on blown coverages, potentially, but I think he's just gotten so used to playing that way, he doesn't really know how to do anything else, because he's spent his whole career running for his life.
His mobility is a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing because he's really elusive. It's hard to sack him. It's a curse because he refuses to stay in the pocket. Like, he just won't. I always bring it back to Aaron Rodgers because he's our Lord and Savior.
Oh my.
Aaron Rodgers is incredibly elusive, but he stays in the pocket and only leaves when he has to. Russell Wilson leaves the pocket on almost every drop back. I hate watching Russell Wilson play. It's just infuriating.
Wow. See, I'm the exact opposite. I love watching Russell Wilson play.
He plays like you would play in Madden, where you hike the ball, you stand there for a second, you don't even look to see if your receivers are open, because how could they be? It's been a second. And then you immediately hold right trigger and start running out of the pocket. Just stop.
Well, he usually only has 1 second before he has to start running for his life.
Step up. But these are plays where he has great protection.
He's just so used to it, because if he doesn't react that quickly, then he's going to get sacked immediately.
He holds the ball. I don't have a stat in front of me. I bet he holds the ball longer than any other quarterback in the league. Like, I don't know if that's a scheme problem. I think it's a him problem, not a scheme problem. It could be a receiver problem. There was a year where with the Green Bay Packers, and you could see it on statistics and paper, none of the receivers were getting open, so Aaron Rodgers had a bad year, because it was the year Jordy Nelson went out and Devontae Adams wasn't good yet.
Yeah, he wasn't good yet.
And Randall Cobb was the number one, and he's not good as a number one. He's a number 2 or 3. And no one could get open, so Aaron Rodgers had, for him, a bad year. Still, 4,000 yards, 100 rating.
Okay, enough of the humble brag
7
here.
7 interceptions.
Okay.
Anyway,
whatever.
Aaron Rodgers, call me. I love you.
That's why Devontae Adams is overpaid, even though I like him, because anybody can play with Aaron Rodgers.
No, Devontae Adams is good, though.
No, Devontae Adams is really good.
He is the best thing that ever happened to him was Aaron Rodgers yelling at him about not trying hard enough. Do you remember that? The year where Jordy Nelson went down, Aaron Rodgers publicly said, yeah, well, if some of our guys like quit playing video games and actually practice, they'd probably be really good.
Oh, man, okay.
Yeah, he called out Devontae Adams publicly, and that's the best thing that ever happened to him.
No,
that
true.
Dude is very good.
No, he's very good. It's just kind of one of those things. It's like the Packers are going to have 3 wide receivers making over $10 million a year.
That is a problem.
That's a
they
very
should
big
cut Jordy Nelson.
It's a very big problem because it's like you have a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, do you really need to have 3 really highly paid wide receivers when you have a quarterback that good?
Or they should trade Randall Cobb.
I think they either need to trade or cut Randall Cobb because the repertoire and rapport he has with Jordy Nelson is just so valuable.
In the red zone, Jordy Nelson's always open. It's sort of like Adam Thielen. How Adam Thielen's always open. Jordy Nelson can't do it most of the time, but in the red zone, he's always open.
He's always open, and you already have that rapport with him. And I mean, he may end up taking a pay cut because he knows he's kind of getting up there and everything. It's just Randall Cobb. He's a good receiver. It's just I think he's really overpaid, and he's more of a detriment than he is helping you out on the field.
Agreed. All right, well. We didn't get to all of our topics, and we're over time.
Hey, that's right.
So
typical show.
We hit both marks today. It's the mark of a good show. We hope you enjoyed it. We like rambling. We like going on tangents and talking sports.
Talking sports, very off the cuff, making predictions, and random, just throwing topics at you.
You just, you have a stream of consciousness. And you just let it flow.
Exactly.
Just let it flow.
Just
That's how
naturally.
I like to do things here. So if you agree or disagree with any of our points, let us know. Leave us a review on iTunes. A 5-star review would be wonderful. We love you very much.
That'd be great.
Tell us which team you think is better between Georgia and Alabama, because everyone knows Georgia's better.
And Sooner fans, we want to hear you throw some massive shade at us for kind of downgrading your Oklahoma Sooners. So be sure to reach out to us.
I would love to hear another Oklahoma fan try and tell me that they did play a good defense. TCU's defense is really good. I would love to hear another Oklahoma fan try and convince me of that.
Yeah, please at us at the Rollout
Show.
You
can at me.
at me.
But thank you for listening, and thank you for joining us. We love you all.
We love you all. Have a great week. Safe and happy new year. And we'll see you in 2018. Bye-bye.
See ya.
See ya.